BBC Radio 2. Now we're going to talk about 15-year-old Natasha Ednan Laperouse. Natasha died in July 2016 after eating a baguette from Pret-a-Manger, which failed to list sesame on the label. She had a severe allergy to sesame seeds. You will probably remembering this story now, I'm telling you about it. She was reassured by their absence from the ingredient list, and she bought the sandwich at Heathrow Airport. Having eaten it, she fell unwell on the plane. She couldn't breathe, and despite her father administering 2 doses of adrenaline via an EpiPen, Natasha died later in a hospital in Nice. At the time, British law required restaurants and takeaways to list any of 14 serious allergens on their packaging. But if the product was freshly made on the premises, they didn't need to do that. In this case, it was the artisan baguette that contained the sesame, but as it was made there freshly in the shop, Pret didn't have to list the ingredients individually on the label. While Pret-a-Manger were complying with the law as it was, the inquest in 2018 heard that there were 6 other cases of allergic reactions to Pret sandwiches in the year before Natasha's tragic death. Her parents, Tanya and Nadim, have campaigned hard for a change in the law. With more than 2 million people in the UK diagnosed with severe food allergies, they argued that detailed ingredient labelling on all pre-packed snacks, sandwiches and meals directly sold to the public would be a life-saving step. It was dubbed Natasha's Law, and the breakthrough came last October. The law came into effect. So Tanya and Nadim are here with me. Good afternoon.
Hi there. Hi, Jeremy.
And I'm sorry we start, obviously, with that terrible day. And it was you, Nadim, who was with your daughter.
Yes, I can't actually believe that, we can't believe, but I can't believe as well, that it's going to be nearly 6 years that we last saw our child alive. When I reflect on it, it seems like a lifetime and yet really short. Her last living words to me before she died was, "Help me, Daddy, I can't breathe." And I couldn't do it. I couldn't help her in the way to save her life. I was doing everything that I knew to do from being a parent of an allergic child, but it wasn't enough. It didn't save her, and she died in front of me. It's so tragic that what we discovered at Natasha's inquest, that there were in fact other situations where people had been hospitalised to similar food, and yet at that point nothing had been learnt or done about it. And we realise as parents through our horrific trauma, gross sadness beyond, I think, anything really humanly imaginable. We had to do something. Some good had to come ultimately from our child's death. It could not continue in this great country in this way and see people die or be seriously hospitalised again.
So Tanya, you, off the back of the loss of Natasha, began to piece together exactly what had happened. Is that right?
That's right. So I wasn't on this trip. I was at home with Alex, Natasha's brother. It was just a 4-day, really sort of a trip for Natasha and her best friend as a treat. And so I was just hearing things. Nad phoned me from Nice and said, "You've got to get here straight away. Natasha's really ill." I didn't really understand what was going on. It's actually, to be honest, all a bit of a blur. I can't really piece together what actually happened on that day, apart from when I was waiting in the gate for the plane to board. Nad phoned Natasha's father, called me and said, "You've got to say goodbye to her. She's going to pass away any minute now. I've put the phone next to her ear. You've got a couple of 10 seconds or so to say goodbye."
Yeah. And you then began to understand what she'd eaten and how it came to be there. Is that right?
That's right. Well, that was actually more you, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we almost forensically kind of put together pieces of a jigsaw that painted a very clear picture in our mind that actually something was very wrong with the food that she'd eaten. I say wrong for her as a food allergic person, and indeed many in the country. And I immediately rang my mum back in London, and I said, "Go and buy the same sandwich, basically from Pret-a-Manger, and that when you do, ask them, what's in the sandwich exactly. Ask for more information than what's on the label." My mum did do that when I was in the hospital in Nice, and she called me back and said, crying, said she'd been there and asked, and that they'd told her, in fact, that it was full of sesame seeds, but they're just not visible to the eye because they were baked inside the dough of the bread. And I think my mum, she told me, she was just crying, basically. And it dawned on me that actually something was very much wrong. And when we returned back with Natasha's body in a coffin on the aeroplane a few days later, we immediately, through our grief, looked up the law. And we found, quite shocking, didn't we, what we found?
Yeah, we found that there was no law at all. There was nothing to say that a food company needed to list all the ingredients. They could list anything they liked. So they could put in some ingredients, but not others. And the problem with that was it looked like it was packaged the same as maybe a sandwich in a supermarket, and it did have ingredients on it, but just not full ingredients.
And is that because part of the preparation happened on the premises?
That's right. It was basically a loophole that was being used. That law was in place for small businesses, for small sandwich shops, where quite often somebody goes in and says, can you make me a ham and cheese sandwich, and what kind of cheese do you use? And you can actually speak to the person making it. And that's why the law was actually there, but it was a loophole that was being used by other businesses.
I see. So it meant that some big chains had pre-packed sandwiches without accurate ingredient lists.
Exactly, yeah.
So tell us then, Nadim, how Natasha's law changes that.
It's huge. Natasha's law, as we uncover literally every week more and more, just the huge positive effect it's had on society here in the UK. Natasha's law now, since the 1st of October last year, every single food business, and that's all the famous brands, Greggs, Pret-a-Manger, Wasabi, you can name any brand on the high street, and individual cafes as well, have to, by law, state the full ingredients of everything that's in a sandwich or prepared food that they sell, that they package up and put on in a refrigerator or on a shelf, that they've made on the premises, perhaps in that morning or the day before. Now there is 100% clarity on the total ingredients. So the effect of that is basically like putting on glasses for the first time, and you were always blind. And now food allergic people, 2 million people and more in this country, can with confidence pick up all these foods, and they're talking about hundreds of millions of packets of food every year, pick them up and decide if this product is safe for them or not.
Right.
And it's a real plus, actually, for the food industry, I should say, because by giving this information, they are actually much safer as a business against anything going wrong again, because they're being clear and transparent. So there's a great benefit to industry and to the public.
So the baguette that is today's equivalent of the one Natasha ate would say clearly now sesame seeds in bread.
Exactly, that's right. And if that had been on the label when Natasha picked up her baguette, she would never have eaten it, and she'd be alive today.
Just on a different point, this allergy, I was actually out last night with somebody who just suddenly said they can't eat nuts, and it just made me think how, now I knew I was seeing you today, how common this is, as you said, 2 million people. Do you have any sense of where this allergy thing is coming from? Because I don't remember it 40 years ago when I was a teenager.
That's right. Most of us, when we were growing up, we never really heard the word allergy, and if we did, it meant hay fever.
Yeah.
And it's actually something called the allergic march. It's been changing over the last few decades, and more people are becoming allergic. It's not just that people are being diagnosed better now, they are actually becoming allergic, and it's especially prevalent in children. We're looking at up to 8% of children in the population have now got allergies, and that's at least one food allergic child in every classroom across the country.
And you have it's called Natasha Allergy Research Foundation. So what, you're hoping to crack the code here, are you?
Absolutely. So if you can imagine, it's a charity, but it's not a charity in the conventional way that you public may think about big charity. We're parents who started this, who lost their child, and we're completely mission focused on solving this problem before we die. This has to be done, and we've assembled some wonderful people who work with us in the charity, and trustees, the great and the good, to solve this problem and wield a large sledgehammer. And the thing is, we know, and as we've been told by the leading allergy scientists, that actually, if we actually do some good work right now and focus on it, we can solve it in the next 20 years for good. And that is really like a very, very motivating thing.
Because the ideal position would be to identify the allergy that somebody like Natasha had and to give them something, it may be a vaccine or something that stops them being at risk. Is that right?
That's right. Or even a potential of actually not being allergic, not having allergies. So we're looking at treatment and we're looking at cause as well.
And tell me about Natasha, Tanya, your daughter.
Oh, she was just lovely. There's not a day that goes by that both of us don't wake up thinking about her, go to sleep thinking about her. She life for her was quite difficult with her allergies. And what we're doing now would be absolutely what she'd want us to do. Of that, we are 100% sure, because she did feel quite lonely on her journey with allergies. And, it wasn't until after the inquest that we even realised how many people actually have them. We thought we were actually kind of quite rare and no one was interested and no one really cared. And unfortunately, that's how many people were still feeling. But the numbers had gone up significantly in diagnoses. So we do it for them, don't we?
And if we solve it, put simply, as we intend to do in this country, the same will work for all the other countries. So the research we'll do we're about to embark on is open sourced across all the universities in the UK. And just give you an idea, in Europe there are 17 million seriously food allergic people. In the USA it's 33 million. And as you go around all the various countries, the numbers are staggering. It's around 250 million people in the world.
Gosh.
So we intend to focus and solve it. And as I go to bed every night, we go to bed, on my bedside table is a big picture of me holding Natasha when she was only 6 weeks old. I kiss that picture every night. I look up to heaven. I say, Tashi, wait for me. I will be, hope to be with you soon in heaven one day. But, before that time, just help us, watch us solve this problem, as a legacy to you and to prevent other children and adults dying.
Thank you so much for coming in. Nadim and Tanya, Ednan Laperouse, parents of Natasha, they now run Natasha Allergy Research Foundation.